Back in 1993, my best accountant gave me very good advice. I think it was a good advice. He gave me good advice that he regretted tremendously 1 year after he gave me the advice. I didn't regret it, but he regretted it. He told me, Yanki, it was 1993, why don't you take Alאדין public? I said, public? What's public? Why should I take it public? Why should it be a public company? And he said, you should be a public company because if one day you'd like to sell the company, it will be easier for you. I said, I don't want to sell the company. I want to grow the company. I want to make it a bigger one. I want to make it an international one. But he said, trust me, if you want to sell the company one day, it will be easier for you. Maybe you should do it. I was very young at that time. I was less than 30. By the way, I think that I hold the record of being the youngest CEO on NASDAQ at that time. I was 29 point something. I was then dethroned by Dell Computers. Michael Dell became a youngest CEO in NASDAQ just after that. Sic transit gloria mundi. It was very, very fast. But 1 year after I went public, I took the company public and I went public, and we raised only $7 million anyway. I fired my accountant. And the reason for that was very simple. He was not qualified to handle public companies. He was too small. He was inexperienced. He was maybe a great person, but he couldn't handle a public company. Honestly, I couldn't handle a public company at that time. These were different times. Stories like that don't happen today. When we took Alאדין public, I was signing the documents as the CEO and the CFO of the company. Somebody told me later, this is 20 years in jail. And I said, why? He said, you know, if you give a misleading whatever in the prospectus, it's 10 years to the CEO, 10 years to the CFO. You signed as both, it's 20 years. So for a while I was really scared. We built the real board of the company only after we went public. So we went public, and then we really built the board, and then we really developed our first business plan, and then we hired the VP of marketing, and then we hired the CFO, and then we became a real company. But obviously, such things don't happen today. If you want to take your company public today, and the question is, do you want to take your company public today? Maybe one of the issues that we should discuss today is not only how you do it, is whether you should do it, who should do it, why should you do it, and then if you want to do it today, it's a much more complicated business. It's a much more accountant, lawyer, intense regulation, whatever, and we'll discuss all of these issues today. So as you understand, the other speakers today are going to be very serious guys. They're going to be the accountants and the lawyers and the serious guys who are going to tell you how hard it is to take a company public. So I'll stay with the state of mind of being different, of being a bit more playful about it. Let me just give you in 5 minutes a short history of Alאדין as a company, because I think the story is relevant to what we will discuss today. And then I'll invite the first speaker. And I think since we are such an intimate public today, you should feel free to ask questions and hold like some kind of a discussion over here instead of just boring lectures. I'm talking about myself. So Alאדין. Alאדין was started in 1985 as a tiny company, and we took the company public without any fundraising in the middle as a first real funding step in 1993. Two small underwriters, the New York Stock Exchange. I'll tell you just one story. The underwriters came to me a couple of months before we took the company public, and they said, Янקי, we need your business plan. I said, I don't have one. They said, okay, write one. So I gave them a business plan. After I gave them a business plan, they said, yes, but the most important part of the business plan is not here. What is that? The projections. You should tell us what are your projections for the future. And I told them, sorry, I don't have projections. They said, you don't have projections, you have to put projections down. So I went to my good friend Dubi Moran. You all know Dubi Moran. Dubi is the most consistent entrepreneur that I know worldwide. I mean, It's a different story. We'll tell Dubi's story some other time. But I went to Dubi Moran and I told him, look, they want to take me public. They're asking for a projection. I have no idea how much I'm going to sell. What should I do? He's asked me, so how much do you sell now? I said, we do about $4 million a year. Think about it. Taking a public company public, doing only $4 million a year. Again, it doesn't happen today. He said, you know what, you should write 12. I said, why 12? He said, because if you write less than 12, they will not take you public. I said, fine. Excel was not Excel at that time. It was a different spreadsheet. Took the different spreadsheet, wrote 12, worked it backwards, and presented the projection to my underwriters. They were happy with the projections. They took the company public, and I was not happy 2 years after that, 3 years after that. Because 3 years after that, we did $11.9 million. And I said I should have written 15 or 20 or whatever. So we took the company public, we became a serious company, and then we went through the second significant phase. The product was security, software security, internet security, IT security. We protected software against illegal use. Our customers were software vendors. Security. Not really an interesting product. I can tell you today, a really boring one. The company was more interesting, if you ask me, than the product itself. It was fun to run the company. The product was just an excuse for the company. If I have one first advice to give you, by the way, find good excuses, because whatever you're doing, this is what you're doing. So try to find the best excuses you have to run your own companies. Don't just settle for boring products. Later, we had the next dilemma. The next dilemma was how to grow the company from $20, $25 million sales to $50, $100 million sales in sales. And we did something which was not really typical in Israel at that time. We went and acquired a German company larger than Aladi. Many times you have a dilemma, should I go to the IPO, should I go M&A, should I go on an exit, should I go private placement, should I go whatever. We'll discuss that today. How do you handle such dilemmas? But at that time, we were public at that point, and we knew that to really grow the company, we needed to go and buy significant sales outside of Aladi. At that time, most of you remember, the most common sticker in Israel at that time on most of the small cars was Maxwell Buy Me. You remember the sticker, Maxwell Buy Me, because that was the state of mind of Israel 15, 20 years ago. I would suggest it's somehow also the state of mind today. We develop and build companies for somebody to buy that company later on. Very few companies are built to last, built to exist, built to develop an industry. We should discuss it today. So we went out and we acquired a German company larger than Aladi at that time. We combined the two companies. It was a very successful combination. It made Aladi number 2 in the industry. We were very successful. The first phase started a couple of years later. From number 2, organically, we became number 1. So now we had a tiny company who went public, acquired its competition, became second, continued to grow organically, became number 1, and we were very successful. And our mission was to be number 1 and grow further and become a larger Israeli company. We were proud of the fact that we are based in Israel, headquartered in Israel, management is in Israel. We got offers, somebody suggested to buy the company for $1 billion, not $1 billion, $500 million, sorry, it's a big number. So for $500 million, we got one suggestion. We got offers to buy the company, but we said, no, we are going to buy a long-term, sustainable company that is going to last here in Israel with Israeli management. We somehow ignored the fact that the product was very boring, but, you cannot be perfect in everything that you do. But then came the crisis, the year 2008, the big stock exchange crisis. And during that crisis, share price went down, investors' mood went down, everything was so negative. And then we got to experience another aspect of what we are going to discuss today, the aspect of being acquired, and being acquired in an unfriendly, hostile takeover. So we had a dream, but we couldn't materialize it. The investors were not willing to support us in the year 2008. They were not willing to wait a bit more. They said, now is the time. Sorry, share price is at 8. Somebody is offering me 9. I'll take the 9 today. I don't want to dream about 20 tomorrow. So it was very simple and very crude and very straightforward. Share price was really depressed. Somebody offered $1 more, and the company had to sell itself for an amount which, by the way, was way less than what was suggested along the way if we really wanted to sell the company at that time. So personally, we have experienced the IPO, the fundraising, the acquisitions, the M&A, the partnerships, and then being acquired in a hostile takeover. And if we can help you today within the next 3 hours in addressing some of the dilemmas, some of the aspects, some of the things you should consider going through these phases, I'll be very happy if we can do that. And to start this story, I'd like to invite our first, help me here, our first speaker today, Gary Epstein. Well, we agreed already that Gary is going to introduce himself. He's so good at that. And
we didn't agree, you insisted.
thank you, Gary.
Okay. Hi.